It's insane how it's been almost 4 years since I started my studies. I'm a literature student from Britain, and tomorrow is my first day of term. So I will be starting my final semester of my bachelor's degree tomorrow. We'll be starting my last class and starting to write my bachelor thesis. And I thought it would be a fun opportunity to take you on a uni day. Working title, it's something like Time and Speechless of the Failure of Narration on the Poetics of Trauma in Hanya Yanagihara's A Little Life. My first couple of books for my thesis, for my bachelor's thesis today, and I'm going to show them to you real quick. So this is the first one that I picked, and here's the second one. It's Poetics of Trauma, and it's quite big, to be honest. Yeah, so we have those two, and then we have this one, Wounds and Words, that I have already kind of worked with a little bit. Yeah, at least like the introduction. And then last but not least, a fourth one that I have also already worked through now, which is quite thin, and it's Other People's Pains, and it's kind of more on the ethics of narrating trauma. And initially I thought this was not going to be the most benefiting read for me, but then the introduction really surprised me. Also, those comments aren't mine. Like, those comments are mine. I don't write in the books I borrow from the library. I just always use those kind of sticky notes. But someone annotated this quite heavily, aside from me. Like, look at those comments. But that wasn't me. And I would really love to know who that was, because apparently they have kind of quite some insight on trauma and literature. So I would love to know who annotated this. But yeah, these two have been quite helpful so far. So this is all kind of like the literature that I'm collecting and going through to like theorize the main development for trauma in literature so far, like the main theories and the main definitions of just what trauma in literature, how trauma in literature is represented and defined, as kind of like my first big chapter in my thesis to kind of base my actual analysis on. So that's what's going on with these. These two are basically read through. I just have to take notes on them now, and these two are still remaining. So yeah. Writing my research proposal, and I just did that and handed that in, and it feels surreal. Book to my collection today, and it's one of the classics when it comes to trauma theories in literature, and it's Kathy Carute, one of her main works, and the book is quite battered, like it's clearly seen better days, and it's also quite old. It's been worked with for sure also like look at that, yeah, it's seen better days, and it's also quite heavily annotated. I've not looked into it yet, but it's one of the very main books and argumentations about trauma representation in literature. So this is definitely going to be something that I have to incorporate in my first chapter, and her other book that's also very high up in the trauma in literature research is missing from our library. So my guess is that whoever borrowed this and so heavily annotated this one as well as this one probably kept or lost her other book, because we don't have it anymore at our uni library. It says it's lost, so I will have to find another way to get it or find it, but yeah, this is just another addition to the collection. The reason that I'm doing this thesis, obviously I don't have to say that I have been fascinated with a little life for a long time, since 2017 to be exact, when I first read the book when I was 17. But the reason that I considered even doing a thesis on it, or actually getting the idea to do it and getting the courage to do it, is because of a fellow student whom I met a year ago, last summer, during an internship that we both did, and we got to know each other and we got to talking about a little life, and at some point she was like, well, why don't you write your bachelor's dissertation on it. And I was like, well, that's not possible, because our uni is more focused on classical literature most of the time and not very much contemporary literature. And I always thought that I would have to go with that stereotype and just write a very classic dissertation on like 1984 or something in that direction. But she kept encouraging me, and so I started Googling and I started thinking about it, and I got incredibly excited, and I knew that I would have to try. And it turns out, obviously, looking at it right now, that I am doing this and it is possible, and I found a supervisor, and it has been a bit of a journey. So I first started Googling and looking whether there was any kind of academic research on A Little Life in November 2021. And there were some essays, but not many. Maybe I found around 10 essays or so. And 2 of them maybe were really good and going into the direction that I had in mind. And then I started taking some notes and just thinking about it, and then I had a meeting with a professor from my uni on my birthday in December to pitch the idea to him on writing a thesis on A Little Life, and specifically the way trauma is inscribed into the narration structure of A Little Life. And he got really excited, even though he hadn't read the book yet, and said if no one else takes on it, he would be taking on it. And he did take on it. And then it kind of all got rolling.